What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Wednesday, February 28th. Alright guys, quite the day here for Palantir stock. It's up almost $1 a share, 97 cents a share to be exact, 4.12% in regular trading hours. Let's take a look at this name and pull out some bias and some levels to watch from today's trading day as we head into tomorrow, kind of a all-around prep as we head into tomorrow, Wednesday. All right, first of all, after hours here, the stock closed at 24.53. We're currently sitting at 24.68. We are up about 15 cents here after hours as of right now. Again, you guys have heard me say this a lot. If I'm a bull, yes, I'll take 15 cents green after hours. The truth is, though, we have to take it with a grain of salt just because volume is so, ridiculously low. I mean, look at this. Again, you're looking at this on a phone, you're probably struggling to even see that. It's really low, okay? It's easy to push around, but, as I always say, if I'm a bull, I'd rather have the stock be up after hours than flat or down, because when it comes down to it, that is the real price. Now, that's really it for the 1-minute chart here today. Let's take a look at the 5-minute chart and start looking at our day-to-day perspective, starting with our 5-minute chart ritual here, taking a look at the volume profile here on Palantir. Now, again, we expect big volume off the open. That's not incredibly out of the ordinary. Now, we saw kind of a pump, dump, and then grind higher all day. This was actually relatively interesting movement off the open out of Palantir. But looking at the volume profile, this section of the video each day, this is all about context, okay? We can't look at, okay, if it was above 2 million shares, that's big volume, and we should, we have to consider time of day, right? So we get big volume off the open, bulls, we expect that, okay? That's not out of the ordinary. I mean, 4.5 million, whatever. But then we see incredibly quickly lower volume. Right, volume came in very, very fast off of the open, which sometimes on stocks, Palantir included, we'll see volume hang out higher. Like we might see the first 4 or 5 minute candles be 2.5, 3.5 million, and the movement might be an opening drive higher, and that tells us a different story than something like this, a volume profile like this. Whereas as the stock pumped and then came lower, we went from a big sample size in the market agreeing that the stock belongs higher, and then really quickly we saw volume dump off a cliff as the stock fades, and contextually speaking, for early in the day, I would say that's a pretty big dump off in volume based on the volatility, at least taking that into context, right? And of course, not incredibly surprising, after that volume profile plays out, stock grinds higher the remainder of the day and is still doing so in after hours. Take it with a grain of salt. Let's move on now to the 30-minute chart. While you guys are listening, head down to the comment section. Let me know, what's your position in Palantir heading into tomorrow? I'm curious to see where you guys all sit. Options, calls, puts, shares, short shares. I'm just curious where you're all sitting. Palantir, to me, I've loved this. I've loved this company for years now. I've loved this company since IPO. It's one of those stocks that I've always looked at, similar to AMD. I was talking about this on AMD a lot in the last, probably at least 6 months ago, maybe, even more so a year ago. But these are just those stocks that I was just sitting back and looking at these and saying, there's value here, right? And the value takes time to be recognized, especially on a company like Palantir, where a lot of people don't understand the company. But when it gets recognized, I personally think it's going to get recognized in a big way. But either way, taking a look at the 30-minute chart, little tangent there. Taking a look at the 30-minute chart here. This is interesting because we had a relatively big move here today and things changed. Like we were discussing yesterday, we were in between that channel, but now today we popped above the 200 period moving average here on the 30-minute. That 50 period crossed over aggressively as the stock moved higher on pretty big volume. And now we find ourselves, that 50 period is approximately 70 cents to the downside. So ideally, bulls, what I would be looking for here tomorrow is that 50 period to continue to curl upside. Again, get some, every time we see a move to the upside, if you're a bull, you want to, get some psychological feet, so to speak, up underneath that move. And that comes in the form of the popular moving averages. And the 50 on the 30-minute is going to be the quickest one to react. So I want to see that one continue to curl higher as quickly as possible tomorrow. Bears, Ideally, you'd want to see that 50 period flatten out and maybe have a low volume day tomorrow, or ideally, obviously, a down day if you're a bear, to try to get that 50 period flattening, if not curling downside, to buy you some time, okay, as a bear. And again, these are all just one factor of many, which we come to the conclusion of at the end here of the video. Now, the 4 hour, if you take a look here, and by the way, what I mean by that, one factor of many is that each chart on its own, I never trade off of just one time frame. I want to trade off of all the time frames and then put that in kind of a like a bucket, so to speak, and then look at it and say, okay, does it float or does it sink? Right? That's kind of what I'm always doing here every day. I always hope, of course, that these videos, the primary objective is to provide value to you as the viewer. But truthfully, these videos they're helpful for me too, because I'm looking through the stock and talking it out. So this is almost like my nightly stock study routine, and I'm kind of letting you guys in on that. I hope you guys enjoy that. I enjoy making these. So here on the 4 hour chart, you can see that not a lot changed as far as levels of the moving averages. However, we did, of course, reclaim that 50 period, that's beautiful. Really simple here on the 4 hour come tomorrow. Listen, it's been about a week of trading since we've seen that bulls above the 50 period. So ideally, any retest of that 50 period down at the $24 region, I'm going to want to see a bounce off of that level just to kind of prove support of that 50 period. Bears, ideally, you'd want to see a retest of 24 in the 50 period, obviously. But even more so than that, you wouldn't want to see, for example, this gets a little more complex than just up or down, right? If you're really bearish on Palantir, the stock closed at 24.53. It could close at 24.10 tomorrow. But if I'm a bear, yeah, the stock's red. But that's not a win in my head, because really, my primary objective, at least looking at the 4 hour, is to crack 24 to the downside, which is that 50 period moving average. And until we do that, in my head, that's still a psychological hang-up if my objective is, short downside. All right, so you have to think about this, with a little more complexity, I think, than just up or down. It's really a matter of, okay, what's the primary objective if you're a bull versus if you're a bear? And then, what's your trade time frame? And that can tell you how quickly you want to see these things play out. Because in all reality, you're really looking to crack down as many psychological barriers that the other side have kind of in their arsenal as possible, and as quickly as possible. All right. Now, the daily chart here. Here on the daily, this is the most important chart of all. Of course, it's going to paint the most obvious picture here of the stock. This one's really simple. Okay. Yesterday we were looking at 24. We cracked that today. That's beautiful. Now, number one on the number one on the list for bulls. A hold of 24, which, conveniently, by coincidence, is the 50 period on the 4 hour. So now that level has slightly added strength, at least in my experience. Okay, so a break of that, I would not be absolutely thrilled in the short term as a bull, but any downside test of 24, I want to see hold. But really, here in the near term, my primary objective is a crack of 25, move up toward that recent high of 25.53, and ideally start cracking that to move up, open up a potential move toward 26. If you're bearish, 25 right now is the enemy. Ideally, you'd want to see a crack down below 24, a retest, and hold 24 as a resistance. That would also be on the 4 hour, the 50 period. And that, I think, would discourage some bulls on a variety of time frames, which obviously, if you're a bear, is your goal. All right, guys, now let's take a look here at what was the options bias out of the traders today on Palantir, and it's heavy. 342,000 total contracts traded. Get this, look at this. 252,000 calls. 90,000 puts. That hurts if I'm a bear, right? I mean, that is a heavy call side bias. Short-term speculators here, 0 to 20 delta range, 57,000 calls, 37,000 puts. And then you come down the line here. Look at this. As typical, as of late, here on Palantir, every single delta range is leaning to the call side. As always, manage your risk. The traders can, of course, be wrong. Make sure you stay in the game. Listen, if you got value out of this video, please subscribe to the channel. I am covering Palantir stock every single day here. I'm trying to hit 3,000 subs by the end of this trading week. I think we can do it, but certainly not without your guys' help. Appreciate you, and I'll see you tomorrow.